Good morning. Welcome to Mount Union Christian Church. We're glad to see you this morning. Glad that you've joined us. We trust and pray you've had a great week. This morning we're in Job chapter 15. This is number 4 in our series on the book of Job. I trust and pray that you have been blessed. I pray that this journey that we have embarked on has been a blessing to you personally and to your family. Job chapter 15 is where we want to start this morning. Now this is the second and third cycle, as we call them, of speeches. This is if you remember, we talked about how there's the prologue, the monologue, and then there's an epilogue. This is the natural result of this book, 42 chapters. So in this series of monologues, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of debating, a lot of going back and forth. One will talk, another will answer. Somebody else will give a speech, then there's a rebuttal. This is the nature of the book of Job. This morning we're in our second cycle of speeches. And last week I shared with you a little bit about each of these men, the friends of Job. Eliphaz will speak. This is his second response to Job. And basically, he's repeating what we learned from chapter 15 here. Now keep in mind, we're going from chapters 15 all the way down through chapters 31. And then next week we'll look at chapters 32 through 37. So it's my prayer that you've been reading through these chapters, that you've been getting a sense of a feel for the discussions that's been taking place between Job and his three friends. Now the oldest here, as we've mentioned, will speak again. And basically what we learned from reading the chapters 15 and 16 is he simply starts to restate, he repeats his charges, the indictments against Job and the sin that they find in his life. And then there's a little bit of a philosophy, and he sort of restates that again. And interesting, he will try to use wisdom as his proof for the indictment against Job. Then Job will answer. But let's start here in Job chapter 15. And let's listen to this man's charge. Now, we're not going to be able to read the whole chapter, but I'm just going to we're going to skim through it because it's of necessity. We have to. Job chapter 15. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "A wise man wouldn't answer with such empty talk. You are nothing but a windbag. The wise don't engage in empty chatter. What good are such words? Have you no fear of God? No reverence for Him? Your sins are telling your mouth what to say. Your words are based on clever deception. Your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips testify against you. Were you the first person ever born? Were you born before the hills were made? Were you listening at God's secret counsel? Do you have a monopoly on wisdom? What do you know that we don't? What do you understand that we do not? On our side are aged, gray-haired men much older than your father." And so he continues down through the chapter just rebuking and condemning Job by using such philosophical assumptions, if you please. Then we have Job's fifth speech in Job 16. Here's what he says. Then Job spoke again. "I have heard all this before. What miserable comforters you are. Won't you ever stop talking, or won't you ever stop blowing hot air? What makes you keep on talking? I could say the same things if you were in my place. I could spout off criticism and shake my head at you, but if it were me, I would encourage you. I would try to take away your grief. Instead, I suffer if I defend myself. And I suffer no less if I refuse to speak. And then he goes on and on. Look at verse 12 and on down. I was living quietly until he shattered me. He took me by the neck and he broke me in pieces. And then he set me up as his target. And now his archers surround me. His arrows pierce me without mercy. The ground is wet with my blood. And we continue to see and we can hear the agony, the anguish as he sets on the action. Verse 21 and 22. I need someone to mediate between God and me, as a person mediates between friends. For soon I must go down that road from which I will never return. Job is still charging God with his afflictions. He talks about his loneliness. But yet, in spite of all of this pain and heartache, we see him again, as we just read. He, in fact, reaffirms his faith in God. And though Job understands that perhaps God has afflicted him, he seems to yet maintain this confidence and this understanding that God will bring about final justice. And that's intriguing to me as we read through the book. Now, chapters 18 and 19 Bildad, the second of the oldest, this is his second response. So let's listen in to the discussion as the drama continues. Then Bildad the Shuhite replied, how long before you stop talking? Speak sense if you want us to answer. Do you think we're mere animals? Do you think we're stupid? You may tear out your hair in anger, but will that destroy the earth? Will it make the rocks tremble? Surely the light of the wicked will be snuffed out. The sparks of their fire will not glow. The light in their tent will grow dark. The lamp hanging above them will be quenched. And then he just goes on down again, reproving, rebuking Job for his comments and for his remarks. It's interesting, there seems to be four vivid pictures here that Bildad seems to draw out, and that certainly has caught my attention here in chapter 18. But now, Job's turn. Chapter 19. Job's sixth speech. And this is his response to Bildad. How long will you torture me? How long will you try to crush me with your words? You have already insulted me 10 times. You should be ashamed of treating me so badly. Even if I have sinned, that is my concern, not yours. You think you're better than I am, using my humiliation as evidence of my sin. But it is God who has wronged me, capturing me in his net. I cry out, help! But no one answers me. I protest, but there is no justice. God has blocked